Welcome back to Present Pilgrimage. It's Jennifer.
It's Iyabo.
Today in this podcast, we want to talk about how to be an ally and what that means in different forms and different situations. And for me, it starts with talking to white women, because I'm a white woman, about how to be present, to be open, what kind of things that white women can do in having conversations with, in interacting with, and in different environments to be supportive, to be present, to ask yourself the question, what can I learn from this interaction or from this experience? So coming into any conversation, dialogue, event, environment where you may not be familiar with different types of people there, different cultures present, different activities, and instead of feeling maybe a default or initial reaction of being defensive or having to protect, having an attitude of being observant and open and listening and being receptive.
As I listen to you, Jennifer, I feel like before we even talk about how to be an ally, let's talk about what it takes to be an ally. Because some of us know that allyship is good, but do we really even understand fully what we're saying? Why is it important? Why should we do it? So I'm thinking of, I had two big events this week. One was social, one was not. That really hit me hard, right? So they were just, life, right? And one was a conversation where I felt very attacked by a white person, and I came away from that conversation really stunned. But another person there helped me understand that this white person was just being defensive. So I want us to talk about what being defensive is and why defensiveness may look different for me than it does for you or for another white person.
And the fact that you bring that up, that your impression of this conversation with this white man was that he was being defensive, my thought was, wow, I wonder if he even realized that he was being defensive.
Right. I don't think he did. I honestly don't think he did. So one of the things I've noticed in this country is that being defensive, the definition varies. Like, you've all been in this conversation. Like, a lot of women have this with men. Why are you being so defensive?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not defensive, me. I'm not defensive. And so I even wonder if we should come up with a different word. So, because it just seems like it's such a charged word.
It is.
But like in this day and age, if I say you're racist, gosh, you are going to be defensive because that's so taboo, so horrible, right?
Yeah.
So we react to accusations and we want to defend not just ourselves, guys, but also what's important to us. And so one of the things I think that is critical to explore with white America is white American culture. And how we defend it so much, how everything is in place to defend it. So I want to tell you about this friend of mine. Her name is Desiree Adaway, Adaway. And she does diversity and inclusion work for organizations. And Desiree did a free call called something along the lines of how to spot white supremacy at work. And I thought, oh my God, Desiree, why are you doing this? I'm seeing KKK hats and hoods and, all this stuff when you say white supremacists, right?
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of extremes I think of. Well, what Desiree did in this call, she just did it a few weeks ago. She talked about what white supremacist culture looks like. And how things like your right to be comfortable. She pulled on work from Tema Okun, Tema, last name Okun. And I don't think she's a Nigerian person, even though the name sounds Nigerian. But she pulled on work by that woman and talked about how, for instance, in a corporate environment, the written word is gold, right? Whereas, and that really struck me because as an African, we really venerate our oral traditions, right? So I was like, oh, okay, you're right. The written word is important. But what happens is when you have a very creative person who maybe doesn't write memos, but maybe can do one of those poster board things, has different ways of expressing and learning, that person doesn't get the same kind of promotions as the person who can write the memos.
Yeah.
The right to be comfortable was another one that really struck me.
Let's go into that a little bit. So what I think that's also tied into class and privilege and our capitalist society of, you're going to have the most luxurious, comfortable car. These are the things that you need in your home in order to feel comfortable. So it's like this coveted, it's funny, right? It's this cultural sort of indoctrination of that's a privilege.
Yes.
Comfort is a privilege.
Privilege or an entitlement?
An entitlement.
Yeah.
And
like it's a mark of you've arrived.
Yeah.
And so nothing can disrupt it, right? So the neighbor next door playing his boombox with some rap music, then you get to call the police.
But I encourage you, I exhort you to, look actually at that and why it's so important for you to feel comfortable because the world is not comfortable.
Right.
I encourage you to actually look for situations, not to go walking out in the highway, in traffic. That's not what I mean. But look for situations where you kind of push that level of comfortability because that is where we're going to people of difference, who from different backgrounds and different cultures, the world we live in a global community, we're going to need to meet in that place of, especially for white people in America, to get out of that comfort level to come toward other people. And that means that we need to make those few steps to do that and intentions.
You know what popped in my mind? When you go to a restaurant and the line is just a little too long and you just, on the one hand, you could just be hungry and ready to eat. And so you choose not to wait at this restaurant. On the other hand, how much of it is that versus I'm entitled to not have to wait when I spend my money? Or another one that popped in my head is that waiter or person in the drive-thru at Starbucks who's maybe a foreign student or their English is not very American. They don't have a huge, very high grasp of the English language. And you get so irritated when you have to say 2 or 3 times what it is you want from
and then
the
scheme
person.
of things, having to repeat yourself twice, like how, really how bad, how much of a struggle is that?
Yeah, but it just struck me how that's a place we practice comfort.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good way of asking our listeners to examine where are you practicing comfort across the board that it actually would be okay to have some discomfort. And
discomfort isn't a bad thing.
No.
It's not a binary. And why do we feel that we have to become almost infantilized or numb to having any kind of sensation or feelings? And we were talking about this earlier, Yabo and I, about embracing sadness, and with Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain's suicide, and Jada Pinkett Smith and her Red Table Talks, saying it's okay to talk about despair. It's okay to talk about sadness. It's important to embrace those feelings that aren't necessarily culturally acceptable. It's not a bad thing. It's not, the ideal to just feel, quote unquote, how do we say? Nice.
And it's not even a good thing. It's not even that, I'm having a great day and I'm so happy that this happened. It's just this slightly elevated numbness.
Yes.
That's just nice and numb and daddy.
It's contrived.
It's contrived. That's the sad part. And on the subject of allyship, one thing I wanted to share with our audience, I do a lot of work teaching people about power. And so here's my take on it. I think we haven't talked enough about what power is. And there's a book by Kenneth Bowling, an English economist from the 1970s, who whittles power down to 3 forms of power. And I think we've talked about it once on this show before. But I want us to, I go back to this over and over. Every single coaching client I have, we come back to this point over and over. We live in a society. If I'm driving down the highway and I'm doing 100 miles an hour, the cops can pull me over. That's threat power. Power over. It is finite. It is limited. There's only but so much that cop can do to me legally, right? He can only give me a ticket of a certain amount. He can only, seize my car or whatever. So he in theory, he has power over me because it is an authority delegated to him by the state. The second power is power in, and that is your internal capacity to grow your life. That's what makes a 68-year-old woman go to college and get a college degree at that age. That's what makes people survive all kinds of things. There was a man on Oprah Super Soul Sunday, her new book club book. He did like 30 years for a crime he didn't commit. That's power in, the power of resilience, right? And then shared power is what Jennifer and I are frankly doing on this show. We come together, both of us with strong power in, come together and say, let's share and let's create something synergistic. Both power in and shared power are infinite. So I say all of this to say that when we're talking about allyship, before we talk about what you should do and what you shouldn't do, I think it's important to know that what allyship does is say, I am switching from me being a white person who has embedded in me to degrees I don't even know, power over as my rights in life, to discover more of my power in, so that I can now begin to share power with a diverse group of people. So I'm going to say it one more time because I think that's really important. I, as a person, as a white person, I'm not white and Yabo's not talking, I'm saying that a person who's an ally needs to understand that allyship is saying that I, as a white person, I am taking this cultural inheritance I have of power over everybody and everything. That is how I came to this planet. I'm born into it. I practice it. I don't even know when I'm not doing it or when I am doing it. I am now converting and transforming that power over by going deep into myself and finding out what my power in is, so that I can intentionally share it with every other person, including those who are diverse from me, with shared power. And that is the relationship of all 3 forms of power. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And I think that our title of the podcast shows that this is the pilgrimage, and the pilgrimage is inward, but then that becomes reflected outward. And one of the first steps for me as a white woman was to really look at those default reflexive actions and attitudes about the power over. So having to let go, having to really examine, does this really benefit me to feel like I can be, be served first or be given the best table in a restaurant, or not have to worry about, being turned away from a nice place or not being followed in a store, and just kind of making these assumptions. Does it really benefit me? And what if I just kind of gone along with complicitly, and in my opinion, that's with a white male power structure that don't really serve me anyway, and also if I'm a working mother, accepting less pay, not having good maternal benefits or maternity leave, or having childcare. So therefore, either I can't continue working and getting paid, I either have to stay home and take care of my kids, or I have to send them to an expensive daycare in order to keep my job. Does that really benefit me? So really, and that is some serious inward inward reflection, challenging, becoming uncomfortable, but also enabling the power in to reveal itself. Mm-hmm. And it makes me sad that I feel like so many white women don't even understand the kind of personal power, mm-hmm. the power in. They're not in touch with it at all.
No. And see, this is why my way of addressing diversity and inclusion, because I'm an immigrant, because my mother was white, my way of dealing with it is that I don't have a problem with white people. I'm doing this with you, Jennifer. Mm-hmm. I don't have that. Sometimes I find there's an acrimonious relationship between whites and blacks, especially here in the South. But I don't have an acrimonious relationship with most white people I meet that are decent human beings. The same way I don't have an acrimonious relationship with other Africans or African Americans I meet that are decent human beings, right? Mm-hmm. Me personally. However, I do feel that when we talk about privilege and we talk about race, there is this feeling of, are black people asking white people to give stuff up so that they can have it, when it's not that simple. It's not that simple at all. I really believe that with the kind of inclusion we're talking about, it's human wholeness. Because you as a white person, you're being cheated if the only form of power you know is power over. That is a finite power. And you're not yet tapped into the infinity of your power. It's not real. Yeah. It's not the best you can be. So you haven't begun to make money, create a life, create relationships based from truly who you are. The role of your whiteness is what is presented. It's your committee. It's your publications department. Yeah. It is not who you are.
Exactly.
So allyship is about you knowing you.
Yes.
The other aspect of allyship that I think we can now get into, I like this backdrop that we gave, is here are just a few things you can do in the next week, month, mm-hmm. right?
And the one thing you can do by yourself is walk around. Again, I'm using myself as a white woman. Look at the ads that are presented. Look at the ads on TV. Look at the billboards. Look at the magazines. Take note of how many people of color are in the pictures, in the photos, being lifted up as either images of beauty. Take note of how many white people are. Look at what those images are presenting. Do I see my own color reflected back? Is there another standard? Drive down the street and think, how many times do I see a cop car going by, and how many times am I worried that that cop car is going to be maybe looking for me or something along to those lines?
Yeah.
Take note of your own reaction when you see a cop car, and realize that that's probably not what many other people can feel or worry about. Or an immigrant who's here working hard, to make money for their family, and going to church. Are you afraid that immigration authorities are going to come in and suddenly, or to your grocery store and start asking people questions? Is that something that even crosses your mind?
Yeah. Listen, that was so good, Jennifer. One of the things that I want to ask you to do, for me, since I've been in this country 37 years, let me tell you one of the most haunting, achy things in the pit of my belly is how invisible I've been in America. There are few people that actually have made eye contact with me in my lifetime. I'm envisioning myself walking through Hartsfield Airport. You know how busy that place is. And in America, you have this experience of people gazing through you. They look at this little spot right above your head. They might be wearing a smile, and they're just moving past you. So A, it's part of American culture. B, it's intensified in white-black relations where white people actually don't see you. I was with a Nigerian friend of mine at a private school. We were walking on the grounds of the school here in Atlanta, and this man stopped and talked to my friend and complimented her on the top she had on. And as we walked away, she said, "I really like him." I said, Yeah, he actually looked at you. She said, is that what it is? I said, begin to count how many white people look you in the eye and hold your gaze. So just make eye contact, hold the gaze, smile, ask the person their name, read their name tag. Hi, Maggie, how are you?
Today?
A guy served me yesterday. His name was Nappy. So I kept saying Natty. You know I screw up names all the time. So I said Nappy. And every time I said his name, he just smiled. He gave me the biggest smile. Try that. Look for a coffee shop owned by a non-white American, non-corporate in your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Visit it. There's Spendify. I think, did we talk about Spendify last week?
Yeah.
Okay, Spendify is an app, at least for Atlanta, that tells you black-owned businesses. Yeah. You spend money on funky stuff like fine aromatherapy soap and stuff like that. Go find a black-owned shop that makes and sells that kind of stuff. It's not just for the black community, you know.
Yeah.
Coffee, we know, is universal. Go figure that out. Today is the end of Ramadan with the Islamic community.
Yeah.
Find something to do to celebrate that. Look for an iftar dinner in the area and go for it. By the time you're listening to this, we may be past that, but save it for next year. The other thing I forgot to say this earlier when I was talking about power. Peggy McIntosh, in one of the things she's written that I've read, talks about the difference in racism for white people and black people or people of color. And this goes back to the issue of defensiveness, right? Mm-hmm. So she said, all people of color know that there are three forms of racism. One is the personal, two is the cultural, three is the institutional or systemic, right? So institutional or systemic is, they didn't get the raise, they didn't get the job. This is the way the system keeps certain people.
Higher rates of convictions for the same crime. For
right.
Of color.
Right. Cultural is all the billboards that you zoom past every day. How many of them have people of color on them? How many of them have white people on them as the norm and as the standard?
Certain products that might appeal to a certain group or class or racial group versus ones that might appeal to others.
Right. Or you go in the Hallmark card store. How many cards do you see that show a person of color on the front of them? Or do they have them in one small section over to the side and the main aspects of the store?
How many action figures or dolls in
Ken and Barbie? Mm-hmm. All of those types of things are cultural racism. And then the personal is, I don't like black people. I don't like white people. I don't like whatever. And white people only seem to understand the personal racism. They do not account for cultural or systemic racism. And that's why there's a lot of defensiveness whenever the subject of race comes up. Immediately all the white people in the room think, they're calling me mean and nasty. And I'm not mean and nasty. Mm-hmm. But most times, if you stop and listen, ally, that person is speaking about cultural and systemic racism and not an incident of, this person was nasty to me and called me a bad word or whatever.
So as we're talking about these daily interactions and daily activities for white people, they're just so familiar, we don't even notice. And that's not an excuse or an explanation, necessarily, but it just takes a little bit of work and time to take that moment to notice that this is the environment that we grew up in and we took a lot of these things for granted.
Yeah. And so I want to hear back from you. Email us at presentpilgrimage@gmail.com and let me know what you did and what you're thinking.
Go to our Facebook page.
Or go to our Facebook page.
Leave comments there.
Leave a comment there. We're going to post this there. Leave a comment. Let us know. We want to hear from you.
And we appreciate the feedback we've gotten so far. It's
we're excited. Thank you guys. Bye.